Are
Well,
you still
Scott,
up? Are you still up north, or where are you, Scott?
Yeah, I'm still here in Philly, and we're not going to spring training. We're doing our games remotely. So no Florida sunshine for me. I'm glad the weather's turned. I've had enough winter.
Last year it was mid-February when we talked to you. Of course, at that time we had no idea what the next month would bring. So how weird was it for you and the other broadcasters to get the news just about this time last March that the season was going to be put on hold, and then you just had to play the waiting game until July?
Yeah, it was obviously strange. What's funny is I go back and forth quite a bit from spring training. And when everything officially shut down, I was actually in Philly. But I had, I rent a place every spring for the month. So I had all my stuff down there. And when I guess it was on a Thursday, I think everything shut down. And I was scheduled to go back to Florida. I had a flight scheduled for Friday night because we were doing Saturday's game. And I remember we're sitting in the kitchen and talking to the kids. And we were like, you know what? School's not happening. We got this place in Florida. Why don't we just get in the car and drive down? I got to go get my stuff anyways. So we drove down, and we actually spent the rest of March down there, which was nice. But yeah, a whole different world. Seems like a long time ago now.
It sure does. I was actually on that Thursday flight down from Philly last year.
Right?
When they shut it down. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So Scott, interesting that you said about not doing the games, because I actually live here in Lakeland now, and the Tigers, I guess, are doing their games. I saw where they've got their guys here, and they're going to rotate them through a little bit, I think, as they go, but they are doing their games from here.
Yeah, and I think different clubs chose to do different things. For us, TV wasn't going down. The cameras were there, obviously, so they were going to televise all the home games, but be able to do that, broadcasting from the studio. Really, it only has eliminated, some, maybe midweek road games for us. We're still doing most of the weekend broadcasts as we normally do on the radio. We have to do them remotely, which, we did Sunday's game against the Yankees, and we had one picture. That was it. Which, so there were a couple of instances where one thing that's really hard is, especially for a radio broadcaster, is trying to follow everybody on the field.
Oh, yeah.
When you have one camera angle to look at. So, but at the same time, I don't know that there's that many people sitting around critiquing going, oh my gosh, he didn't tell me where that runner was around third base or whatever. So I think people are just excited to have live sports and live events and, something to distract them from their day. So.
Well, Scott, this year's Phils, the regular 8 won't look a whole lot different from last year. The big question, I guess, is center field. It's gotten a little complicated now with a Hazley injury. What do you think the Phils brass ideally wants to see happen with Odubel Herrera? Do they want him to flop so they can cut him, or do they want him to play, great and make the team, or do they want him to play great and then trade him? What do you think?
I don't know about the trade situation, but I think they're rooting for him to do well. I don't think, Joe Girardi said it earlier in camp. He's there because he's got a chance to make the team. He's not there for any other reason than that. He's not there as obviously the only reason to have him there is if you think he can help you. I know they owe him some money, and yes, maybe there's a spot for him somewhere else, but I think as much as anything, having the extra competition is a big thing. I mean, if Odubel can show that he's still a possible, big leaguer in center field, I mean, what does that say to Adam Hazley? What does that say to Scott Kingery? And those guys, Mickey Moniak? Hey, I'm going to have to play better to win a job. And that's really what it's all about, is that the more you have in the mix with talent, the better the competition is, and the more you can, improve your ball club. So I don't think he'd be there if they didn't think, or if they didn't, best case think, hey, maybe he can win a spot on the team.
Well, what do you think about the backup guys that they do have? Everybody's left-handed. It seems like with Brad Miller, who can play just about anywhere. He's a lefty. Odubel's a lefty. Moniak's a lefty. Hazley's a lefty. Roman Quinn's a switch hitter. Maybe that gives him a little advantage. But which one of the or which couple of these bunch are going to make this team?
Well, I mean, the thing about those backups is a lot of the everyday guys, with the exception of Harper and Didi, it's pretty right-handed heavy. So it gives you some options off the bench with Miller, with Joyce if he makes the club, to have those left-handed bats. And, don't forget, you're looking at a situation this year where, there's no DH. It means, pitchers are hitting. It's back to National League style of play, which means a lot more opportunities for, a Matt Joyce to come off the bench. Whatever, you're behind. It's the fourth inning, but you've got a couple eyes on, and you want to see if he can hit one out of the yard. Or same thing with Brad Miller. So I think there's, it gives, if Joyce does make the club, which, that was one of the questions I had. I mean, are there at bats for Matt Joyce and Brad Miller? Part of that is dependent on somebody like Odubel. Does Odubel make the club? He's left-handed. Adam Hazley's injury changes the flow chart, if you will, because he's left-handed and he's injured. So I think as you get, again, we talk a lot in spring training about roster construction. And what happens on April 2nd? You reconstruct the roster because something changes. But, the guys that they have decisions to make for, like a Joyce, where they have to offer him an out, and he could go somewhere else. Those decisions are coming up. And I think they, at this time of year, I think you always try to err on the side of collecting as many assets as possible. So I think that's probably the way they try to build this roster.
Well, Scott, pitching, of course, is crucial to the team's success. I know the focus will be on the latter part of the rotation. They have Nola and Wheeler at the top, and the much maligned bullpen will be in focus also. But frankly, neither Nola nor Wheeler really came up big over the last couple of weeks of last season. Couldn't get it done over their last 4 starts each. They have to be better, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, if you're going to win a division, if you're going to go to the playoffs, they have to be true number 1s and 2s. I mean, You look around this division, there are 1s and 2s, without a doubt. I mean, you look in Washington, there's no question about it with Scherzer and Strasburg. They've got more to follow that as well. But, the guys at the front, DeGrom and the Mets have a deep rotation. The Braves, they're youngish with their rotation, but they're talented. Same thing with Miami. I mean, Sixto looks pretty impressive. Who knows what he'll be like in his second year, but he looks impressive. One thing I'll say about Zach Wheeler is that he was about as consistent as anybody, and again, he had that problem with the fingernail, and that was a real bummer, and I think it probably did affect him a little bit. You throw him out of your rhythm a little bit. But, I mean, we've seen it from Nola a couple times now where, I know his really good season, if you look back on 18, I guess, September was his worst month. But there's no question those guys have to be true type, number 1 type guys if this team is going to do anything and make any real noise in the playoff race.
Yeah, and I'd like to think going into the season they're going to be that. What worries me is when you get to the next 3. Is it going to be Eflin, Moore, Velasquez, Anderson going to get in there? How do you see that playing out on the bottom end of the rotation?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think this is a little bit of a collecting assets kind of situation where you're going to try to make the roster work the best way possible, where you keep as many guys and as many options available to you. I just don't know. I mean, Vince Velasquez, we've seen a lot of Vince Velasquez over the years.
Oh yeah.
Um, Spencer Howard is intriguing. He's interesting, but I know they've talked about the fact that he wasn't feeling 100% last year. I remember thinking that he was good, but not overwhelming when he got to the big leagues. What we saw of him, you could see there's flashes there. There's definitely something to work with. There's a lot to work with, but he just wasn't at his best. And again, Spencer Howard, the ceiling is very high for a guy like that, but will it be this quick? I mean, if you're a team that wants to be in a playoff chase, you need results now. And that may not, Spencer Howard may not be ready for that. He might be. Time will tell. I like Eflin. I'd like to see, again, Eflin's been a tricky one. There's been some hits and misses in terms of his relationships with the coaches, the pitching coach and philosophies and styles. So I'd like to see if he can, maybe have a year. I don't want to say left to himself, but just kind of try to go be Zach Eflin and see what that looks like. Chase Anderson, Moore. Again, I don't know. I mean, these guys have some track record, but I think Dave Dombrowski is one of those guys who will tell you that, look, if I can get 3 starters that are legit, so that's putting something on Eflin there too. If I can get 3 starters that are legit, if I get 4 and 5 to get me through 5, I think that's today's game. You know what I mean? Like it or not, I think that's today's game.
Well, then you get to the bullpen, and we know what happened there last year. It's got to be better this year. It has to be. I like Connor Brogdon, what I've seen of him. Neris, of course, is back. Otherwise, it's a lot of new faces. Archie Bradley with the beard has, said all the right things. So hopefully he can perform on the field as well. What do you expect from the bullpen this year?
Well, like you said, it can't be worse.
Exactly.
If it is. Because, I mean, we only watched it for 60 games last year.
Oh,
it felt longer.
100 more. So, yeah, I mean, it can't be worse. I think they've obviously added velocity. They've added some guys with, some giddy up. Does that mean everything? No. It's about finding guys who can pitch. And they also found a few of those. I don't think Bradley is a big velocity type. Watson is not a velocity type for sure. But these are guys that know how to pitch. Brandon Kinsler, another guy who knows how to pitch, who's done it before. He's going to have his moments that are good, and he's going to have his moments that are not good because he's not, he's not that lights out necessarily guy. But I like. I think they're going to take a long look at younger arms if they can. But again, collect assets. If you're a fringe guy and you've got options and you can go to Lehigh and you can do the alternate site, and that means they can keep a spot for a Kinsler or somebody else who's a non-roster, then I think that's what we'll see, at least from the outset. And again, I could be wrong. Stuff plays. Joe Girardi wants to win. He needs guys that can get outs. But it doesn't necessarily have to come from a guy who's throwing 98. I like Brogdon a lot. Yeah. He was a completely different pitcher after he went down and came back last year. Added that little cutter and had worked on that a little bit. It gave him an extra weapon. And, I mean, that guy, it gave him a real good weapon against lefties, to get in on them. I like him. I think he's got a lot of potential.
Me too. Hey, Scott, I said this for 3 years in a row, or I'm going to say it for my 3rd year in a row. I think the success of this team, obviously you got to have the pitching, is on Rhys Hoskins. If Rhys Hoskins is a 280 guy with 30 home runs, this team can win some games. If he's a 220 guy with 20 home runs, this is maybe not a very good team.
Interesting. I mean, I've never heard it put like that. But I mean, I guess I could. I mean, I understand your point, no question. I guess we could lay that at the feet of just about anybody, because I happen to think that there's a lot of guys on this roster that need to put up big numbers. I mean, Harper obviously has to put up big numbers. JT has to put up some big numbers. You know, obviously now he's in another stratosphere in terms of what they're paying him and everything else. You know, Rhys, to me, you know, again, if he's hitting 30, then you're probably getting some run production. I got to have somebody getting on base and making something happen. I think back to when Kutch started 2 years ago so well, and the first 2 months of the season, what that meant for the lineup. It was pretty huge. And I think they need some of that back. They need some swagger at the top. They need some guys on base for Harper and for Rhys and for JT. So, you know, again, this is not a team that is obviously predicted to win the division. And when you look at it on paper, there's a lot of people that have things to prove this year. And if they're going to make noise, if they're going to have a chance to win the division, there's a lot of guys like Rhys, like Gene Segura, like Scott Kingery, that have to do something. They have to produce something. And I don't mean just something. I kind of think, like you said, Bill, I mean, they've got to produce significantly. You know, it's a big year for Rhys. I mean, you talk about, do you want to, you know, for the relationship, between Rhys and the Phillies, do you want to sort of bring him into the fold long term? Are you ready for that? Do you feel like he's a guy who can be that guy? So it's pretty big year for him.
Yeah. Going to be an interesting year for sure. Hey, Scott, we've used up all our time with you, unfortunately, but I have one more question I'm going to squeeze in, totally unrelated to baseball. I'm on Instagram, and sometimes I spend too much time on there, and I discovered something on there about you. Is it true that you talk to chickens?
Yes, we have chickens. And I have been known to try to speak to them. That is true.
The chicken whisperer.
My in-laws, I don't do a real good job. My in-laws actually gave me a book for Christmas called How to Speak Chicken. It's required reading for anybody with backyard chickens.
Okay.
Oh, all right, Scott. Hey, we appreciate you taking the time to join us. I will enjoy the sunshine down here for you.
I appreciate that.
Looking out for you.
Do it, Bill.
All right. Okay, Scott. Thanks, and good luck during the season.
All right. Take care, guys. Good to talk.
Thanks, Scott.